Good evening, and thanks for joining tonight's TI Technology webinar hosted by Texas Instruments, where tonight we're going to get you ready to teach your students some math around Valentine's Day. My name is Mike Houston, and I'm the moderator for this event. I teach algebra and calculus near Pittsburgh, where I use TI Technology to make tough-to-teach, tough-to-learn concepts accessible to all my students. Tonight we're lucky to be joined by our two panelists, Becky Underwood and Becky Beyer. Becky Underwood has recently retired from full-time teaching after 32 years of teaching high school mathematics and computer science in Casper, Wyoming. She has taught everything from foundations mathematics to AP calculus and AP computer science. Becky was introduced to the TI-Nspire as part of a teacher leader cadre focused on training on the TI-Nspire handheld and the TI-Nspire Navigator, and this changed her teaching for the better. So Becky, it's great to have you with us tonight.
Thanks, Michael. It's nice to be here.
And Becky Beyer is a nationally board certified teacher who teaches grades 9 through 12. Her current classes at Kelly Walsh High School include AP Statistics, C++, AP Computer Science Principles, AP Computer Science A, and Becky's also taught pre-algebra, Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Visual Basic Programming. Becky has a bachelor's degree in mathematics education from Black Hills State University and a master's degree in mathematics education from Montana State University. Becky, it's great to have you with us.
Hi, everybody. Welcome from snowy Wyoming.
We're expecting a large crowd on tonight, so your audio is muted. Feel free to send any questions to either of the Beckys using the Q&A window on the right side of your screen. We'll also be using the chat window to send general messages. As a reminder, the session is being recorded, and we'll provide a link to the event certificate of attendance at the conclusion of the webinar. We hope you don't have any audio issues tonight, but in the event that you do, try selecting Communicate from the very top of the WebEx menu and choose Audio Broadcast. At this point, Becky Underwood is going to discuss our agenda.
Hi, everyone. Again, today, Becky Beyer and I are just going to focus on some beginning programming ideas around Valentine's Day. So we're going to start out with a simple shape, a couple of simple shapes on the TI-84 Plus CE graphing calculator that we're entitling Hugs and Kisses. And then we will go on to coding a simple heart on the 84. After that, we're going to switch and do a beating heart, so it kind of looks like it's moving a little bit or beating, and we'll do that on the Nspire, and then a dancing heart on the Nspire as well. After that, if there's still time, we'll provide some other examples of activities that could be used in conjunction with Valentine's Day. And both Becky and I have included all of these examples that you will be able to get at the end of this webinar. And make sure you stay around at the end, because there will be a great drawing at the end for one special person gets to win a trip to the TI International Conference. So,
thanks so much, Becky. And Becky Beyer is going to discuss our expected outcomes.
Hi. So our expected outcomes tonight, we're going to use code to draw some simple shapes. So we'll draw some circles, we'll draw some lines, we'll draw some polygons. We're going to use code to draw some functions. We're going to change RGB color in our programs. That's what's going to allow us to make pretty much any color under the sun that we'd like. We're going to talk about creating loops. We're going to use some variables to store values. And then we're going to use all of those to help us express some creativity in coding using our TI technology.
Thanks so much, Becky. Becky Underwood, you should have control. Feel free to share your screen.
all right, everyone. We're going to get started today with that first little program that I have entitled Hugs and Kisses. And so I'm just starting from the beginning as if you guys are brand new to coding. And if not, if you've done a lot of coding in the past, then this may seem slow to you, but hopefully I'll get everybody going. The other thing I wanted to mention is Becky and I both taught on the 84s, 82, 83 calculators for a very long time, but for about the last 10 years, we have been using the Nspire. So I'll just tell you, I may hit a button wrong as I go because I can no longer do the 84 in my sleep like I used to be able to. So as we get started on a program, first thing we're going to do is hit the program button and create something new. And we have to give this a name. And I'm just going to call mine Hugs for today. Let's see. Hugs. Counting how many I can have there. Hug Kiss, that's what I'll call it. So to begin with, because we're going to do some graphics, I just need to make sure that our function is actually turned off. There's a variety of ways to do all of these things on a computer, but I wanted to remind everyone of the catalog. So if you're ever not sure, you can't remember where the menu is located, you can always go to the catalog. And then if you know the first letter, you can type that and that will get you to where we're going. The first thing I want to do is just turn all of the functions off. This is primarily because if you have got functions in your y equals already stored, they will show up often when we are trying to do something else. So I just want to make sure those are turned off. The other thing that I want to do here is I'm going to set my window using code here. I'm going to hit my, whoops, I already did it. Sorry, I've made a mistake already. So I'm going to go back in and edit this program. I apologize. The next thing that I need to do is set my window. And so when I hit the window key, what I want it to, oh my gracious, I'm sorry. Here we go. Zoom key is what I want to hit. And I want to set my zoom to square because we're going to create a circle. I have no idea what is going on. My computer just went berserk here. Edit to function off. I'll try this one more time. And I want to hit zoom square, which is 5. Okay.
What's nice is when you do this with your kids in class, this is going to happen to you when you teach coding the first time. And that's okay because, you know, your kids are going to have the same mistakes. So I kind of like celebrate mistakes the first time I work with my kids. And we kind of make it a competition as to, okay, so can you help your neighbor get unstuck before you have to call me over? So sometimes it's nice to show your kids it's okay that you're going to make mistakes while you're coding along. And then notice while I'm talking, Becky kind of had a chance to calm down a little bit and hit the right key. Your kids will do the exact same thing when you are coding with them in class if they kind of work together a little bit.
And Becky and I taught a summer coding class for first graders, and we told them you have to show us when you make mistakes because that's how you learn. And I still don't know what was causing that to happen, but I did get it to work this time. So what I wanted to do was set my window to be square so that when I create that circle, the circle is going to actually look round and not like an ellipse because our screen is wider than it is tall. So that's what we had to do. Oh, I'm sorry, I got nervous because something crazy was happening. The next thing, I'm going to go back into the catalog, and I'm going to turn my axis off because I don't want the X and Y axis to show up in the middle of my screen. So I've turned my function off so no graphs show. I've set my screen to be a square so that the circles look like circles, and I've turned the axes off so that I don't have a big axis in the middle of my window. I just am going to have my picture. So the first actual graphics command that I'm going to use is the circle command. And that is under the program, but it's in the draw menu. So you can see there it's number 9. You can scroll down to that, or you can just hit the number 9, hopefully. And this works exactly the way you would think it should. We have to give it a center, an X and a Y coordinate, and we also have to give it a radius. And there's a fourth actual value you can give it to give it a color. So on the 84, we have certain colors to choose from. You're going to see later on the Nspire, we have I don't know, many, many, many different colors to choose from. So I've already gotten this set out. I have a window of about -9 to 9, something like that, and I am going to set my center of my first circle to be at -7 for my x coordinate, 4 for my y coordinate, 1 for my radius, and then I am going to go and give it a color, which luckily shows up under program. I can go in and just choose. Well, since it is Valentine's Day, I'm going to go with 2 and make it red. So my first circle should be a circle at -7, 4, radius 1. Now, I tell my students, don't go write a whole program before you see if anything works. So I am right now going to go and check and make sure I do have a circle in red before I continue. There's a variety of ways you can do this. I often forget about alpha graph. If I hit that, right in the middle, there's a choice that says, or number 1 says you can actually execute your program. So I'm going to do that from here. Okay, I have a circle, it's red, life seems to be pretty good at this point. So as I am continuing, I just hit program to go back to edit. As I'm continuing through this, I want you to think about, is there a place in your class where you could use a circle? Is there some content that you're using so that as we're making these X's and O's and for our hugs and kisses, that this particular a circle or a line would work? So I'm going to go ahead and add a variety of circles to this. Sorry, I just saw a question that says, how do you get to circle? There's a couple of ways to do that. So I can hit the second program key, and then under the draw command, that is one place that circle shows up. It is also in the catalog. Okay? So number 9, I'm going to put another circle in. And I want these circles to just line up across, but I want space, enough space in between for an X, for a kiss to occur inside there. So what I chose was to use, to change my X by 4 units. So by doing that, my next one would be at -3. Oops, I just did the old, hit the wrong button. I guarantee you kids will do that. -3. I want the y coordinate to be the exact same. And I want my radius to be the same, 1. And for that matter, I'm also going to make the color the same. And color shows up directly under program. You don't have to hit second. You can just go straight there, and I'm going to make it red again. And in my parentheses. I'm going to do a couple of these, or a couple more, so let's just do it again. So I showed you, you could hit second draw in order to, or the second program, which gets the draw menu. Another thing that you could do is hit second catalog, because some people like that. Now I'm just typing a C for circle, and it should show up under there. That's another place. So the catalog is always there. You can find every single command underneath that. So if you forget which menu it's under, you can always go into the catalog, which I will do often, because I'll go, oh, was it here? Where was that? So again, another one. I'm just going to get us a couple of, or I think 4 circles is what I was planning here. And program, go to color, red again. So this is kind of getting, maybe that's enough. We'll just do 3. So I'm going to try this just to make sure it actually does what I want. So I'm executing. There are my 3 circles. So I have 3 hugs. Now I want some kisses in there to go along with Valentine's Day. Becky was going to say something.
I have a quick question, Beck. So let's say I look at it and my circle is in the wrong spot. So a kid goes to change it. So maybe I want like the middle one to be a little bit higher.
Okay.
If I go change that in my code and I hit draw.
So let's go back. I'm going to hit program again into edit and go down to number 2 for the program that I'm dealing with. And you want to change the middle one, you said?
Let's change the middle one and make it just a little bit, I don't know, higher maybe?
Okay, so maybe do 5 there.
Yep.
So I'm changing the y coordinate because the x is going across the screen, and why? Let's try that and see what happens. So I'm going to see if you like this one better. So I moved it like that. And this also brings you to an idea that I was trying to go straight across, but kids could draw circles to make all sorts of shapes if they wanted to. If they came up with something else that they wanted to create on the screen, they could use circles maybe and make that shape.
So a teaching tip, your kids will be okay with guessing and checking and guessing and checking, but Beck had us turn off the axis. Sometimes with my kids, I actually will have them take and draw it on graph paper first and leave the axis on so they can see where everything is appearing. And then our last step is to turn our axis off in code, and that way they can compare it to kind of do a little pre-planning ahead of time. That's kind of helped a lot. I know when I've done it with pre-algebra kids to kind of help get them planning how large should those circles be and where should they be located.
And I definitely would not start on the computer without trying this on graph paper with students first. I say with students first. I drew it out on paper before I did it because otherwise I'm like, did I change that? And so I definitely think graph paper is a good idea. Have them set it up to whatever window they choose. Like I said earlier, the only reason I chose square is I wanted it to actually look like a circle and not an ellipse. Okay, I need some, my kisses for Valentine's Day, or my X's is what I'm going to graph in between there. Or I'm going to do a hug, kiss, that type of thing. So I need another command. It is also located under that same draw menu where the circle is. So second program gets me there, but I'm going to create some lines. And the coding that deals with the lines is set up like this. It's the first X, it's like X1, Y1 for the one endpoint of the line, and then X2, Y2 for the second endpoint of the line, and then just like on the circle, then you can add color at the end. So this is now, I'm ready to create my lines in there. I want it to be in between, and I've already messed with this. Like I said, I used my graph paper to know what I wanted, but I have kind of figured out that if I hit, use a -6 with a 3 for my y coordinate, for my first X and Y, and then my second X and Y, I used -4, and my comma for the second Y was 5. And then I added a color again under program to color. And I'm going to make this one magenta, just so that I have something different in there. And I want you to see what I've done. So I started at -7, -7, 4 for my first circle. And now I'm saying -6, 3. So I want to look at that and see what's happening. So second graph, I just hit the wrong button again. So alpha graph to execute. Oh, I forgot I left that X, the circle way up there, but that's okay. I can still create my kiss in between there. So notice I've put half of my X. I need the other half now. So back to the programming editing of this program. And I'm going to finish the other side of that. I just want to make sure I'm not taking too much time here. So on here, I'm going to go get another line again, so number 2, and I need the other half of that. So -6 for the X, 3. I'm going to start at -6 again for my X coordinate, but now I want it at the top of my circle instead of at the bottom of my circle that I just created. So I am -6. And I want, oh, don't forget my comma, 5 in here, comma, and then I'm going to go to -4, comma, 3, comma, and go grab my color.
While Becky grabs her color, somebody asked, how do you execute? She just pressed the alpha graph, and under alpha graph is where her execute option is.
And there are tons of ways, and if you have programmed before, this is a command that I always forget about that alpha graph is here, and then there's an execute right there. And that's what I have been doing, okay? But
and then from here, what are you hitting back to get out?
I'm hitting the program key to just go right back to edit.
Okay.
Okay, so number 2, that is one way, that is one hug, or I have, 3 hugs and 1 kiss so far. But I want you to think about right now, and Becky will look at the chat window as I'm doing this, but I want you to think about, do you have kids plot lines? Would this be something that you could use in your classroom? Is there math that you're teaching as you are also either teaching or practicing while they're getting to be creative and draw Valentines? So does anybody have any ideas? I saw something that somebody asked about, is there a reason that I have a space between axis off and circle? No, I don't need it. I just did it to kind of divide parts of my screen. Okay? The other thing I often do, because I've taught programming for so long, Becky Byer was actually one of my students, and she probably hated this when I made her do this, but I also make my students put comments in their coding. So I left a space, and I can show you how to do that as well. So a comment does nothing to the program. It's just information that shows up. So I'm going to hit alpha and that graph key again, and you'll notice under number 7, it says insert a comment above. So there is my comment. It automatically changes it to all caps. So I'm just going to, or sorry, not all caps, all alpha. So I'm just going to write hug. That's where I'm creating my hugs. That's all I need to do is that, and I'm finished with that particular command. I'm going to turn alpha off, so I'm out of that. So that's just telling me the part of my program that comes next is making my hugs. Okay.
So a couple of questions that have come in from the chat window. One person wanted to know about the estimated time. I think if you plan with your kids ahead of time and have them graph some things out, planning will probably take your kids maybe 10, 15 minutes to get things planned out and plotted. The coding part then, I mean, it's quick, especially if you have a handout with your kids. If you make a short one that just kind of shows, here's how you do a circle, here's how to do a line. You could probably do it in a 90-minute class period with a little bit of directions with your kids.
I think I mentioned I was in a high school or a junior high school in Arkansas last week. I don't know if I mentioned that here or not, but I worked with 9th grade students who had never programmed, and we were doing a different program, but within the first day they were already writing code. They don't care, they just go right along with it. They have no problem, trial and error. They're not scared of computers like sometimes adults are like, well, what if I do this? Well, it'll cause an error, but it's not going to be the end of the world. And that's how you learn, is with errors. The other thing that students, I mean, they were coding by the end of the day, and then the second day we were able to actually do a mood ring activity that TI has. We were able to learn enough coding in the first, I think it was a 50-minute class, and then the second day we actually did the coding of a mood ring, which has a whole lot of things involved, far more than what we're doing so far.
All right, 2 more questions that came in. One is, if your circles aren't round, notice on Becky's second line of code, she said that she's going to zoom square. Your screen is wider than it is, it's wider than it is taller, so it's going to make them look like ellipses unless you make your window square. And then the last question that we got there was, where's color? So if Becky hits the program button from here,
I'm just going to get to a blank line so I don't mess anything up. But if I hit my program key, when you're in the middle of a program, the program key, then color shows up inside there. So hopefully that. Did anybody add for me anything that is something that, or does this go along with anything you teach? Do you have a place that you could use this in your classroom? Skills that you could teach with this? Did anybody add anything for that? So I'm going to show you one more skill while we're here. Now, and I'm going to show you a completed program, but I just want you to see some skills, and then I'll show you the completed program. So another, excuse me, another command that's in the draw, there went my southern accent, the draw menu is text color. So if I decided I wanted to add some text to this program, so all I did was I hit the second program button, and then I went all the way to the bottom and did text color. And under text color, I can set the color. Now, I know that the color I want is number 13, so I'm just going to type that right now. You could go and get, I wanted you to see you can do this multiple ways, but I'm setting the color to 13. And we have a handout that we created that shows you all those colors, so you don't have to memorize what color things are. I have a handout for that. But the other thing that I wanted you to see is now we could draw text. And I'm just hitting the up arrow to go to the bottom, and I want text. So the text has like an, this one has to do with pixels, not with coordinates. If I think I'm correct on that.
You're
anyway.
right, it's pixels.
And so I'm telling it I want it to go down or over and down 5 and 5. We'll see how that looks. And then I want to put some words inside here. So I'm going to hit alpha and put my quotes. Actually, I'll just alpha lock for a second. And I want to hit hugs is what I wanted to say. Inside here. Of course, I can't find any letters as I'm doing this, so sorry. H. I know where the letters are, but we're so much better at texting these days than we are at typing. So hugs, and I'm just going to write the word kisses. A. S. S. I don't want to type something goofy here. And then hit enter. And I want to try that real quickly. So I told you there's more than one way. So the first thing that I showed you was alpha graph, but you can also just quit your program and then hit the program key again and say you want to execute. And the one that I created is number 2. And hit enter, and there's my hugs and kisses. So this could go on and on and on, but what I'd like to do is just show you kind of my, oops, wrong button, show you my finished program that was a little bit different. And I believe, I think it's program 1, we'll see. So this was my idea of something that students could do for just a very simple, all we did was use the circle command and the line command and a text command. So really having them plan out, I think, is super important. Otherwise, they will go on forever and circles will end up in weird locations. To show you, because I don't know, I didn't pay attention to who was on 84s. If you use TI technology, if you're an 84 user or an Nspire user, but I already have this created also in on the Nspire, and if you look at the code for that, it's pretty much the same thing. If we start at the top, I had to set my window, and I used the approximate same as what we had for the other. I had to set color. Becky's going to talk about color a little bit more here in a moment, but I set the color. I drew my 4 circles, the exact same coordinates that I used on the 84. I changed the color, and then I drew my lines for all my X's, and then I changed the color again just so you could see the difference for it to say, hugs and kisses. And notice my numbers were a little bit different here that made it show up where I wanted it. Okay, so there's that. Any questions before we switch to a new project that anyone would like me to answer?
Somebody asked how to insert a line, but we're going to insert a line in the next one, so we'll take care of that question.
Perfect.
And then I think the other question is, where is the quotes?
Okay, they're down on the plus sign, under alpha, and then the plus sign. It's right next to
one last question. Sorry if I could jump in from Martha. Just wanted to know where you could go to set the window again.
Okay, so in your program itself is where, on the 84, in the program itself, so I hit Edit. I'm going back into my program, and here, where do you change, so if you use an 84, where do you change your window in the 84? So I'm going to hit, so you're going to see me insert, so it's second delete key allows me to insert, and then that's under Zoom, and that's where you get your choices, and I just chose, like I said, Zoom Square, so it would show up looking like a circle rather than, like Zoom Standard is going to make it look wider than it is tall, so it'll look like an ellipse. But if you set it to Zoom Square, then it will look like a circle. Okay, I'm going to switch over to Becky now, I think, and I am going to share.
And while you're switching over, Becky, just a reminder to everyone that if you feel really comfortable in your coding and you're having fun, you're following along, that's great. If you're not so sure about your coding ability or experience at this point, don't forget you're automatically going to get a follow-up email within a couple days, and that follow-up email will contain a link to the recording, the documents, and the certificate as well. So if you feel like you're starting to fall behind, it might be best just to put your calculator down and just hang out and watch and ask questions if you have them.
All right, so Becky kind of took the approach of a nice geometry approach where we're drawing circles and drawing lines. Now we're going to switch our roles a little bit and we're going to draw some functions. So I'm going to open up a pre-started program and walk you through a little bit of code on it to begin with. So I'm going to go add it something I just called dancing heart. I have a new command in here that Bex had on her other stuff before. I've seen it before, called clear draw. Sometimes when you're drawing programs on top of others, if you've got an existing program drawn to your screen and you don't hit the clear draw, it will draw, which I was actually hoping when Becky moved that circle up, that's what I was looking for, then it wasn't there. So if your kids are like, wait a minute, I have it drawing pictures from a previous project, if they just add clear draw at the top, then that will take care of whatever's been drawn to the screen. Then I have my axis off because I didn't want to see my X, Y axis. You could do that. So since Becky was my teacher and she did make me do comments, here's a nice little comment. A parent function that I've used to draw a line, or not a line, sorry, a heart in the past is a plus or minus, and then I just have this nice little square root function combined with a x raised to the 2/3 power. So these two lines right here really aren't code that you don't have to type those in. Those are kind of comments to myself and to my students what we're doing. Our new command is draw F. Like Becky, I like to just go to my catalog. And so if I hit second catalog and then I hit the D, you can go down and you can find the draw F command. There it is. So because my function has a positive part and a negative part for it, I'm going to have two draw F commands. And then that's as short as my code's going to be to draw a heart. I'm going to use the alpha graph that Becky used and execute my program. And then I have this nice little heart function. How it is under the draw function. So then I kind of started thinking if I could draw one heart, wouldn't it be cool if I could draw multiple parts and have those hearts kind of radiate out? So think about when you're teaching Algebra 1 and Algebra 2, how do you take a parent function and change the size or change it and shift it to a different location? What would your students have to do to make that happen? So if you click on the chat. So we're going to open that up to the chat section. What are you going to have your students do if you're going to either change the size of a function, like augment it a little bit, or make it shift up, down, left, or right?
So I'm just looking in the chat window for your responses. Multiply for a, okay,
yep, so
perfect. Multiply for dilation.
Which is actually where I'm going to go with this program. So I'm going to go back and I'm just going to choose second quit. and I'm going to go to program, and I'm going to go back to edit my dance. And then I'm going to say, since I already know where my dilation needs to be, I'm going to put it right here where the 1 is at. So I'm going to change this to just a simple variable. So I'm going to say, instead of having a 1 there, I want some variable that I'm going to change for my dilation. And then I'm going to put my same dilation there. And then here's my new code, my new piece. I want that A value to change from maybe 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. So this is where a loop is going to come in. If you don't have this space already here, I had my space set up. But with my kids, I would have them draw the first function and then go insert the loop. You can actually go up to alpha graph, and you can actually tell it to insert a line above. So if your kids kind of get their code kind of condensed and you want to add to it, if you just do that alpha graph, there's that insert line above command. But then all I'm going to do is go to my program, and I'm going to say for A, let's let it start at a 1, and let's have it go to a 10. And right now I'm going to just do a step size of 1. That's the default. So my A value is going to increase from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 10. Then at the end of my code, I'm going to tell it to end the loop. If you don't tell it to end the loop, nothing really happens. It's not very exciting. So now if I go tell it to graph and execute the program, there is my nice parent function as it's been dilated a little bit. And I should have 10 little hearts. So that one's kind of a nice filled in heart.
Becky, there was also somebody said we could do a change with an X minus H or a Y minus K and do that. And that we're actually going to demonstrate in another program today.
Yeah, we're going to move them left, right, and yeah, do some shifts with them. So this one was fairly straightforward. Other than I decided for me, I didn't want them to be quite so close together. So you can actually tell your loop, maybe I want to go from 1 to 30, but I want them spaced out a little bit. Oops, I don't want a step size of 3. I want a step size of, there we go. So A will start at 1, increase by 3 to be a 4, increase by 3 to be a 7, and it'll keep going. And then once it gets larger than 30, it'll execute my loop. So now if I execute it, notice my dilations happen to be a little bit larger than they were before. So I want you to think about your content. Notice I have 2 functions plotted. Besides my functions, what other functions could your students use to draw hearts?
Anybody?
That in the chat window.
Okay.
Does the chat window have any?
I don't see anything.
That's when you're in question and answer.
All right, we're trying to look at everything.
Oh, you guys are right. So you could do a constant to move things up. Yep. Another thing Beck and I talked about, because we used to draw pictures with our students just on the y equals, is if your students wanted to do parabolas and you wanted to maybe restrict your domain, you can actually do a restriction using the draw F function. You can go in front of the draw F function and you can encapsulate your entire function using some parentheses. And let's say I only want the positive part of this graph. Yep, absolute values and semicircles would work. Then I can say I only want these when X is greater than, so I'll have to go to the test menu and say when X values are greater than 0. And now if I draw my graph, you'll notice that on just that one part of the heart, I only get when X's are greater than 0. So you could use absolute value functions and restrict your domain, and you could use parabolas to restrict your domain and do the exact same activities with a different function.
And Becky and I talked about this because we have always, she said it a little bit ago, because
We've taught together forever.
Yeah, we've taught together for forever, but we had a class where we made them limit domains all the time and draw pictures, and according to what kind of functions that you were dealing with. If you're higher level, I don't have it on here now, but I had created one using the absolute value of the sign to get the top half of my heart, and then just an absolute value that was, I moved down, absolute value of x minus 3 that I moved down in order to make it actually, the absolute value was the bottom half of my heart. So there's all sorts of functions that you could use.
So I'm going to pass the ball back to Becky, if I can. Oh, there it is. Because now we're going to switch platforms, and we're going to do a little bit with the Nspire. So, Beck, I do believe you have it now. If you just choose show your screen.
I think you're seeing me now. All right, the next program.
No, you just shared content.
Oh, what is
that? Never mind, you're there.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry. So there are a variety of things that we could do with this. So that was my hugs and kisses that I had earlier. I showed you that it worked exactly. The commands have a little bit different name, but they're pretty much the same commands on the 84 as on the Nspire. The next one that I want to, let's see here. I'm trying to decide get to the one that I want. The beating heart was what we were going to do next. Now, I don't want to go through and type. You will notice here, this is quite a long program, okay? There's quite a bit happening. I would rather just explain to you what's going on. So on the Nspire, just to make sure you do know how to do this, I'm going to go and insert a new problem just so you can see how to start out coding. So when you insert a new problem, because I didn't want it to mess up with my other problems, then I have to add a page. Well, this is we're adding a program editor, and I want a new program at this point. And I would have to name it. I'm just going to call this sample program for now, just so that you could see. Everything else I'm leaving alone, and I'm saying okay. So that is how you get your program started in order to actually have something show up there. And just like on any other page on an Nspire, when you're in a coding page or a program page, the menu changes. So I want you to see that. Many of the things that we have are on there. So notice at the very bottom, there is the draw command. And that is how I created and got the circles and everything from before. When I hit 9, then I get shapes or controls. So shapes is where I would get my draw line. And notice there's far more commands inside the Nspire than there are in the on the 84. You can still, we've shown you some things that you can do already, but you can do a lot of things on the 84. There's just some additional commands that you get in on the Nspire. But draw line is the same as line. Draw circle goes with the circle that we did. And draw text allows us to create the text like we had before. So I'm just going to do a real quick, I'll do a fill circle, actually, in this case. Notice, though, there are no parentheses on a circle. So like there were on the other one. So the commands, what were they? We had, I don't remember now, 5, 5, I can't remember what I used. Like that. To actually create, we don't add the color here. We do that someplace else. So Control R actually allows us to run this program. And if I didn't make any mistakes, I have a tiny, tiny circle up in the top left-hand corner. So that's not very good. I need to edit it. To get out of the draw screen, you have to hit your escape key. And then I move back to that other page. So let's go make I'm going to make this 50, 50, and there's a reason this is happening, and I'm doing this on purpose. There's my circle. It's filled and it's black. Pretty boring. And also notice that it didn't work the way that it worked earlier because I did not set my window on this one. So I would have to actually go in, set my window, set my color, all of those things. I'm going to go ahead.
Or you can have your kids explore with their pixel width on their calculator, because it's a great time to ask them how far across can you go, how far down can you go. So you don't actually have to set your windows if you kind of have your kids play around with how many pixels do they have on their screen. And that kind of takes a little bit of the coding part out where you don't have to set the window up. So it does make it a little bit easier sometimes depending on how much time you want to spend setting your window versus playing around with pixels.
And a difference here that Becky and I think about quite often is whether you have your math hat on or your computer science teacher hat on. In math, we always are thinking about like the X and Y coordinate system. And for us in math, it would make it easier if 0, 0 was like the bottom left-hand corner of my screen. In coding, when we're teaching programming, most coding windows are set up differently. The default screen on the Nspire is 318 across, 212 down. So if I don't change it, then that's what it uses, and it starts from the top left corner and goes across and down. So that's why it makes a little bit of a difference if you don't set your window. But that's all some coding, and like I said, we have a handout that you'll get access to that allows you to see all these commands. But I want you to see this beating heart, and I want to talk about the code. So this one, I'm just going to execute this program. So I've created a background. I put a heart on it, and then I did an arrow through the center to let you see there's all sorts of things that you can do. So in here, let's look at the code. I don't want to create it all, okay? And starting at the beginning, Becky talked about it on hers, I did clear the screen, just like what she talked about a little bit ago. I'm sorry, I'm moving around the screen. I didn't mean to do that. So there's my clear. Comments on the 84 actually looks like the copyright symbol. Okay? So then we can set color. So RGB color is how it works on the Nspire. So the numbers set up for the RGB color are R stands for red, G for green, and B for blue. So the command is set up just like what I have by the comment. So if I say I want red and some red and blue, it's going to kind of make it what color? Well, I'm combining red with blue, so it makes it a kind of a shade of purple, okay, because I'm mixing those two. The next command that I used was the fill rectangle. I want you to see, draw rectangle, fill rectangle, same exact commands, but it doesn't color it in. Fill rectangle colors in, draw rectangle does not. So it works like this. It gives you a starting point, an X and a Y, and then where do I want to go to? So the command is X, Y, width, height. Okay, so where am I starting? How wide do I want it? And what height do I want? So that is a new command that's underneath there. We also have draw line that is used, and I changed the color here to draw my line just like what we did before. I'm starting at 2180 going 230, 30. Okay. But what I wanted you to see, so lines we've already done, is that loop that Becky talked about earlier. So she had a loop on the 84. I also have one on the Nspire. Works very similar for I is my variable, my loop control variable. I'm going to start counting at 1, continue counting till 10, and the default step size is 1. And then I'm drawing an arc, drawing another arc, filling a polygon, and then down here, I give you with a comment that I want the heart color to change randomly. So I randomly choose my red, my green, and my blue out of the set of numbers that I've dealt with. So I want red to just be always between 220 and 255. I want a lot of red to show up. I don't want very much green at all. And the blue, because then I can get purples that go in there as well, 0 to 200, and then I set my color. So truthfully, it's not beating. All I'm doing is redrawing in a different color. A command we haven't talked about is the wait command, so that it actually draws one, waits for a half a second, draws again, waits for a half a second, draws again. So all of that is what's going into this particular picture. So my purpley colored background, then my black arrow that I drew, then I have two circles, partial circles, okay, two arcs that I drew, and then I had my polygon where I drew the triangle at the bottom. So that's what went on there. Okay? So let's look at those commands again. So my fill arc, here is how I get only half of a circle. So it starts exactly 20, 20, 100, 100 for my width and height and my starting point. But then it says your start angle and your end angle. So I went 0 to 180. If I wanted the entire circle, I could put 360, redraw this, and now you see the whole circle is showing up. So I just wanted you to see that's what makes the difference. Okay? Are you ready?
I'm ready if you're ready. We have one more to show you kind of quickly with some code, and then we're going to be done for the night.
Stop sharing. Send you the... Okay.
All right, so then I'm going to say, share my screen. All right, so I have Becky's basic heart command going, her basic code. So there's just a basic heart. So I have filled the entire background in black, so I have just one rectangle in black. And then I have Becky's heart design with a couple of fill polygons. So that's where I would start with maybe my kids. So there is my color, my background, and then my heart looks really similar to Beck's. I've got a fill polygon for the base and then the two arcs. But then I kind of wanted to know, can I actually take it and make it blink like Beck's? So then you're going to see I have an exact, well, not the exact same, but I have a for loop, just like Becky has, but mine is different. So for my RGB colors, I actually just popped my randomization right in. So I didn't set a red, green, and a blue variables, but it's doing the exact same things that hers was doing. I'm waiting for half a second, and then it's going to loop through my colors. I think I'm going to shorten this to only happen for 10 seconds. I'm going to tell it to control R so it will run. So that would be like my second activity with my kids. So if I was going to do it with my Algebra 2 kids, I would do a little scaffolding and do the heart first, and then add in my loop kind of like we did. But now I want to move them because somebody said, hey, couldn't I move them, shift them to the left, shift them to the right? So that's what I'm going to introduce my students to, a variable for move X and move right. To do a variable in the TI-Nspire, you use the control equals. It's like defined as is what that stands for. So I'm going to take that exact same code that had the black background, that had the loop, and all I did was add in those random move X and move Y values. So then I took the exact same code from the previous page, and now my X axis, notice the X guys have a move X. They're the same because I want that whole shape to move. So each one of my X locations are moving an X direction. My move Ys all have the same move Ys, otherwise your pieces don't move together. And so now for my dancing heart, if I go to run part C, now they kind of move around the screen. So the last thing you might want to do is, instead of having a bunch of hearts, my program was called Dancing Heart. So it might be kind of nice to maybe hide those hearts. So I actually move the background color inside the loop, so that now every time through the loop, the black background is painted. So when it's painted, it will cover up all my hearts. But then this is the exact same move X, move Y code, and then the fill arc commands. So now if I run it, now it kind of looks like the heart's kind of dancing around, but it has different colors because I still have Becky's commands there. So I know we kind of really quickly went through the Nspire stuff. So does anybody have any burning questions about, hey, how did you do this? Or can we take a look back at that chunk of code for a second?
I'm just trying to check out your questions and answers in your chat to see if you have any.
We have a question from Danielle. She knows that the calculator is in radian mode. It's interesting that the code is written in degree mode, though.
So the radian mode actually does not affect it because the code is actually all in degree mode. That's a good catch on that.
There are, I think on the original form for the webinar, it said that all activities are compatible on both platforms. You can do activities on both platforms, so I want to make sure you see that, but they're not all, like some of the commands that are on the Nspire aren't available on the 84. The way it works on the 84, the circle, where on the Nspire it's draw circle, or I think it's draw circle, and so they're a little bit different, but know that, Becky, you want to give me control for a second? Oh, and it's about time to go.
So you might just want to know when you're working with your kids, if you have a mixed classroom, just know that some of your vocabulary is going to be a little bit different when you're working with mixed classrooms, that some is draw and some is their code are a little different.
All I wanted you to see is I created this little just kind of the commands that we use. The top half has the Nspire commands with a little explanation, so you can get that. And then the bottom half, there's a second page that has the 84 commands. And I know that we're about out of time, and I said something about colors. There's the colors, the different things that you can do. So, Michael, if you're ready to take back, because I know we're about out of time.
Thanks so much, Becky. And Becky, I know this, I think, Becky, you called it a cheat sheet whenever you talked to me about it earlier. It took you a little bit of time to type up, but thanks for doing that. I think especially people that are kind of newer to the coding world would appreciate that.
So I'm not sure we got through everything, but I think we got close to everything that was on our list.
No doubt. So as we begin to wrap things up tonight, if you do have any last-minute questions for either Becky, please try to get those asked. I know they'll do their best to get those questions answered. We're excited to have the T-Cubed International Conference coming to Dallas in just a few short weeks here. It's just a great place to learn more about coding, for instance, and to actually have a little more time to sit down and try some code out for yourself and talk to either Becky, I'm sure they'll both be there. Yes. They're a great resource. So please feel free to visit our website to learn a little more about the T-Cubed International Conference. And earlier we said that tonight we're giving away to one lucky winner a free T-Cubed International Conference registration. And tonight's lucky winner is Samuel Ceratos. So Samuel, congratulations. We hope to see you as well as everyone else at the T-Cubed International Conference.
And Becky and I can tell you from all the conferences that we've attended, this particular conference is probably the one that I every year go home immediately with something I can use in my classroom. So it's a good one if you've never attended. It's well worth it.
I agree. Thanks, Becky. To receive a certificate of attendance, go ahead and click that link in the chat window. Also listed is a link for the documents that both Becky's put together tonight. They spent a lot of time putting those documents together, so please feel free to take a look and use them. If you are watching this on demand, go ahead and copy that link into your favorite browser to receive your certificate. And in case something happened with the links and they're not working for you tonight for any reason, feel free just to hang tight, and in your email in a couple days, you'll get links to the certificate, the documents, and the recording so you can rewatch this at your own pace and pause and rewind as necessary. So a big thank you to both Beckys for everything you shared tonight. Thanks so much. Time really went pretty fast.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Yes.
And thanks, everyone, for joining us. Happy Valentine's Day, and we hope to see you back online real soon. Have a great night.